In the grand tapestry of the universe, few species stood out as dramatically as humanity. To the galaxy's myriad civilizations, these peculiar creatures defied every norm, every expectation. Their behaviors were strange, their customs baffling, and their unpredictability a constant source of unease. Yet, it was precisely this unpredictability that made them a subject of endless fascination. The Galactic Council, a body composed of representatives from every corner of the known universe, often found itself at a loss when it came to understanding humans. Their wars were a prime example of this enigma. Unlike the meticulously planned and honor-bound skirmishes of other species, human conflicts were chaotic, emotional, and, above all, illogical. One such incident, still discussed with incredulity across the galaxy, involved two human factions locked in a fierce battle within a remote star system. The humans had warned the rest of the galaxy to stay clear, asserting with unusual unity that interference would lead to severe retaliation. The Council, wary of provoking these volatile beings, wisely heeded the warning. The battle itself was a brutal affair, with ships exchanging blistering volleys of plasma fire, the void crackling with the energy of destruction. To the outside observer, it seemed that nothing could halt the bloodshed. But then, out of the blue, a civilian cargo ship emerged from hyperspace, its engine sputtering and hull battered. The ship broadcasted a distress signal, pleading for assistance. In any other galactic conflict, such a vessel would be ignored or obliterated. But the humans, these curious, contradictory beings, responded differently. The two fleets, sworn enemies moments before, suddenly ceased their fire. In perfect synchronization, they broke formation and sped toward the beleaguered cargo ship. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath. What were they doing? Had they all gone mad? Yet, the humans acted with a calm determination that belied the chaos of battle. Together, they rescued the ship's crew, provided emergency repairs, and even paid for the ship to be towed to the nearest repair station, a Drukian outpost known for its neutrality. The galaxy was stunned. This act of compassion in the midst of war defied all logic. How could two warring sides cooperate so seamlessly, only to return to their conflict moments later? And yet, that's exactly what happened. As soon as the cargo ship was safe, the human fleets resumed their positions, restarted their war music, and without hesitation, resumed their battle. To them, it seemed as though nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. The event sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. For months, the only phrase on anyone's lips was death, a human term that encapsulated the sheer absurdity of the situation. The rest of the galaxy struggled to understand. How could a species be so divided, yet so unified in moments of crisis? What did it say about their nature? Were they creatures of war or of compassion? Or, as it seemed, both at once? Another incident, equally perplexing, involved a lone human marine during a skirmish between the Carantes and Durantis, two subspecies embroiled in a centuries-old dispute over a mining planet. The Carantes and Durantis, both highly traditionalist and honor-bound, conducted their battles with a rigid formality that bordered on ritualistic. They would line up in formation, exchange a single volley of fire, and then engage in hand-to-hand combat until a victor emerged. To them, this was the height of honorable warfare. To the human marine, however, it was little more than a frustrating exercise in futility. He had been drafted into the battle after his ship crash-landed on the planet, and though not a marine by training, he was forced into service to earn repairs. On that fateful day, as the Carantes and Durantis lined up once again, the human grew weary of the pointless exercise. Without warning, he broke ranks and charged the enemy line, a battle cry on his lips. The galaxy, watching from afar, was horrified. Surely this lone human would be cut down in seconds. But to everyone's astonishment, the Marine not only survived but reached the enemy trenches. Without firing a single shot, he leapt into the midst of the enemy, grabbed the Durantis commander by the collar and screamed, "Get me out of here!" at the top of his lungs. The commander, utterly stunned, froze in place. The human, his mission apparently accomplished, turned and sprinted back to his own lines, leaving the Durantis forces in disarray. The battle, such as it was, ended in a truce that no one fully understood. In the aftermath, the Durantis commander was found in his quarters, attempting to court-martial a snack cake for insubordination, a bizarre manifestation of the trauma he'd endured. The galaxy, once again, was left baffled. How could such a ludicrous act bring an end to a battle that had raged for centuries? And why did it take a human, a being of such strange and contradictory impulses, to make it happen? As these stories spread, the galaxy's perception of humanity grew ever more complicated. They were a species that defied all logic, a species that acted on instinct and emotion rather than reason. Yet, in their madness, there was a method, a strange sort of coherence that no one could quite put into words. And so, the galaxy watched, both in fear and fascination, as these odd, strange, and utterly peculiar creatures continued to carve out their place in the universe. Each encounter with humanity left the galaxy more confused, more intrigued, and above all, more uncertain of what these peculiar beings would do next. The galaxy's bewilderment at humanity didn't stop at their bizarre behavior in war. In fact, it was in their everyday habits, their casual defiance of common sense, where the true strangeness of humans became most apparent. It was as though they relished in doing the exact opposite of what any reasonable being would do, embracing danger and discomfort as if it were a game. One of the most confounding aspects of human behavior was their relationship with substances that were, by all accounts, toxic. To most species, the idea of willingly consuming poison was unthinkable. Yet humans did so with alarming regularity. Take cigarettes, for instance, an object of fascination and horror to the galaxy at large. To many species, the mere sight of a cigarette was enough to trigger a fight-or-flight response, their bodies instinctively recoiling from the lethal fumes. Yet, humans lit these poisonous sticks with a casual indifference, inhaling the smoke with apparent satisfaction. The Vass, a species of highly evolved insectoids, were particularly puzzled by this. Known for their meticulous attention to health and safety, they viewed the human penchant for self-destruction with a mix of disbelief and morbid curiosity. Ambassador Zacharias of the Vass, a figure of considerable influence within the Galactic Council, once observed a group of humans engaging in this ritual at a diplomatic gathering. Unable to contain his curiosity, he approached them. "Why do you do this?" Zacharias asked, his voice a series of clicks and hisses translated into galactic standard. His compound eyes focused on the small, glowing stick in the hand of one of the humans, a young woman with a carefree smile. "It is poison. You are willingly ingesting poison." The woman, her name was Lena, merely shrugged and took another drag. "It's not about the poison," she explained, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "It's about the calm. Helps us relax. Keeps the nerves steady." Zacharias recoiled slightly, baffled. "But the damage it causes, the harm to your bodies." "We know," Lena said with a grin, as if the absurdity of the situation only made it more appealing. "But sometimes the benefits outweigh the risks. It's part of what makes us human." Zacharias left the encounter more confused than ever. How could a species that was so vulnerable to its own vices continue to thrive? How could they willingly ingest toxins, knowing full well the damage it caused? The more the galaxy learned about humans, the less sense they seemed to make. Yet, it was not just in their vices that humans displayed this strange resilience. It was in their very bodies, their capacity to endure and survive in conditions that would incapacitate or kill most other species. Stories of human soldiers continuing to fight after sustaining grievous injuries were whispered across the galaxy, often dismissed as exaggeration, until first-hand accounts began to surface. One such account came from the battlefield of Mornis 7, where human and allied forces clashed with the relentless Zothrians, a species renowned for their merciless tactics. The fighting had been fierce, with casualties mounting on both sides. Amidst the chaos, A human soldier named Corporal James Harding became a symbol of this incomprehensible resilience. Harding had been hit by a plasma bolt early in the engagement, the searing energy burning through his armor and leaving a gaping wound in his side. Any other species would have collapsed from the pain, but Harding barely seemed to notice. He continued to fight, his focus entirely on the mission. It wasn't until the battle was over, when a medic approached him to offer aid, that Harding even acknowledged the injury. "Looks like I got tagged," he said with a grimace, finally glancing down at the wound. The medic, a vast named Keyless, was horrified. The injury was severe, the kind that would have laid out even the toughest vast warrior for weeks. You need immediate medical attention," Keyless stammered, his mind racing to comprehend how the human was still standing, let alone talking. Harding waved him off. "I'll be fine. Just patch it up and I'll get back out there." It was moments like this that left the galaxy in awe. How could they not feel pain as others did? How could they endure such suffering and continue forward as if nothing had happened? The answer, as the galaxy slowly began to realize, lay in the human spirit, a force as indomitable as it was inscrutable. This spirit, this relentless drive to keep going despite the odds, baffled and inspired in equal measure. It was not that humans were oblivious to pain or danger. They simply chose to ignore it when it suited them. This capacity for resilience was as much a part of their nature as their strange habits, and it was what made them both a wonder and a terror to behold. Back at the alloy refinery where Wag, the crab-like alien, worked, the strange behavior of humans was no less perplexing. Wag had seen humans endure conditions that would have driven most beings to despair. Yet they did so with a casual nonchalance that left Wag both admiring and fearing them. One day, Marcus, the human who had befriended Wag, strolled into the refinery with a wide grin on his face, holding a data pad. "You won't believe this," Marcus said, slapping the pad down on the table. "We're petitioning to reclassify politicians as a separate species. It's already got 6 billion signatures." Wag's eye stalks focused on the pad, the absurdity of the situation sinking in. Only humans, he thought, would consider such a thing, and only humans would somehow make it seem perfectly reasonable. As Wag signed the petition, a sense of understanding began to dawn on him. Perhaps it was not that humans were strange. They were simply different in a way that the galaxy had never encountered before. And in that difference lay their true strength. With a clack of his mandibles, Wag handed the pad back to Marcus, who gave him a knowing smile. Humans, Wag thought, the most peculiar creatures in the universe. In the heart of the alloy refinery on the industrial moon of Shrak, Wag, the crab-like alien, wrestled with the enigma of human behavior. The galaxy had watched with bewilderment as humans continued to defy all expectations, displaying a mix of absurdity and resilience that was both captivating and confounding. For Wag, it was an ongoing puzzle that seemed impossible to solve. His usual routine was disrupted by Marcus, a human who had become something of a curiosity. Marcus was a representative of the human workforce, a being whose very existence seemed to challenge every norm Wag held dear. The day's interaction started like any other, but it was destined to become an eventful moment of revelation. Marcus burst into the refinery control room, a wide grin plastered on his face. Despite the grime and chaos of their work environment, Marcus's enthusiasm was undiminished. "Wag, you won't believe what just happened," he exclaimed, waving a data pad with a dramatic flourish. Wag, his multiple eyes fixed on the data pad, made a mental note to investigate what new human eccentricity had taken shape. "What is it this time?" Wag inquired, his voice a series of clicks that conveyed both curiosity and mild skepticism. Marcus's grin widened. "The petition we started, remember? The one about reclassifying politicians as a separate species. It's taken off. 6 billion signatures already." Wag's eyes narrowed in confusion. "And this is—" "It's a bit of a joke," Marcus admitted, his tone light, "but it's also serious. Politicians everywhere act the same way, regardless of their species. They're all power-hungry, pompous, and disconnected from the people they serve. We thought it'd be funny to create a new classification for them. Wag, still trying to process the idea, found himself laughing despite himself. The absurdity of the petition, the idea of separating politicians into their own species, seemed ridiculous, yet there was an odd logic to it. It was precisely the kind of thing only a human would conceive, driven by a blend of humor and critical insight. You humans, Wag chuckled, are truly the most peculiar of all species. But there's something logical in this madness, a kind of clarity that only you can provide. Marcus, pleased by the reaction, settled into a nearby chair. You see, that's what makes us tick. We mix humor with serious critique. It's our way of dealing with the absurdities of life. Wag nodded, understanding dawning. Humans use absurdity not just to entertain, but to highlight flaws in systems, to provoke thought, and to foster change. This strange blend of the humorous and the serious was a unique trait that made them both endearing and frustrating. As they chatted, the conversation turned to other human habits that baffled the galaxy. Marcus described a recent experiment where a group of scientists attempted to develop a beverage that was intentionally designed to taste horrible. It was a complete failure. No one wanted to drink it. Yet, the experiment itself had intrigued the scientific community, revealing a lot about human psychology and their strange affinity for discomfort. It's about understanding our limits, Marcus explained. Sometimes, we push boundaries just to see what happens. It's not always practical, but it's always revealing. Wag's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. So, in a way, the very absurdity of your actions serves a purpose. It's not just random madness, but a form of exploration and understanding. Marcus nodded. Exactly. We often learn more about ourselves through our quirks and failures than through our successes. This realization was a revelation for Wag. The galaxy had always seen human behavior as a chaotic mess, but perhaps there was a method to the madness. Humanity's peculiar actions were not just random absurdities, but reflections of a deeper, more complex understanding of the universe and their place within it. As the conversation drew to a close, Marcus gave Wag a friendly pat on the back. Sometimes, it's the strange things that make the most sense. We just have to look at them from the right angle. Wag watched as Marcus left, a sense of clarity washing over him. The galaxy might never fully understand humanity, but perhaps that was the point. Their unpredictability was a reminder that the universe was vast and full of mysteries, and sometimes the most profound truths were hidden within the most absurd of behaviors. Wag returned to his control panel, the data pad now resting on his desk. He glanced at it with a newfound appreciation. The petition for reclassifying politicians, the peculiar habits, and the resilience in the face of adversity, these were not just quirks but windows into the complex and fascinating nature of humanity. The galaxy would continue to observe and attempt to decode the enigma of humans, but for Wag, the logic of their absurdity had become a source of admiration. In their strange ways, humans had taught him that even the most nonsensical actions could hold a deeper truth. With a final clack of his mandibles, Wag resumed his work, content in the knowledge that sometimes the most puzzling behaviors were simply different ways of understanding the universe. And in that understanding, there lay a certain peculiar clarity.